As we celebrate Juneteenth this year, we're in the middle of one of the largest protests that this generation has seen, which stretches not just across major cities in the United States, but also in locations around the world, all focused on the treatment of the Black body in America by state actors, namely police departments. We're also recording the devastating impact of health disparities among these same Black bodies as they have higher rates of severe illness and death due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, very much a factor in the lives of students, faculty, and staff. These and other topics are high on the priority list for parents of recent graduates who all had to celebrate the milestone of high school graduation virtually and with yard steins instead of the usual ceremonies and yard parties that have been a huge tradition in the culture. What I like to focus on for this first in a series of dialogue sessions is creating safe spaces for our youth to exercise their First Amendment rights to protest and assemble. So my guest today is Chief Terence Calloway, who currently serves as Florida A&M University's Assistant Vice President for Safety and Chief of Police. He has over 21 years of law enforcement experience. Prior to coming to FAMU, he served as Austin Peay State University's Chief of Police and Director of Public Safety. During his law enforcement career, Calloway has served as patrol officer, dare officer, school resource officer, vice officer, and lieutenant. Chief Calloway is also the current president of HBCU Law Enforcement Executive Administrators. This is an organization of all police chiefs and law enforcement executives in the HBCU space. I have the pleasure of serving alongside Chief Calloway as the special assistant to the president and general counsel for the organization. It is in this capacity as president of HBCU LEEA that I'm asking Chief Calloway to engage in dialogue with me on this Juneteenth. So Chief, you arrived at FAMU in 2013 when the verdict for the person who was acquitted for killing Trayvon Martin was delivered. Let's start by discussing some of the strategies that you implemented with students as they exercise their First Amendment right to protest.
Well, first of all, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I arrived at FAM about 7 years ago this month, and I had been on the job about 50 to 60 days when the verdict came out. I recall going back to the campus, and I didn't know the students, neither did they know me, so it was very difficult at first trying to get them to trust and listen to someone that they didn't know. So what we tried to do was try to make sure that we worked with the Tallahassee Police Department to make sure that these students who were in the midst of protesting had a safe route to the Capitol from our university. They knew what they could and could not do. We wanted them to have their freedom of speech, but be safe in doing it. We wanted them to also have some idea of what they were marching for, because so many of our students just join in a protest or join in a group, and they have no idea what they're marching or protesting or standing up for. So we wanted to make sure that they had that backing. I provided the students with my phone number, let them know if they needed anything while they were out protesting, they had any questions about, can the police do this, or can they do this, or whatever the case might be. I wanted to give them information firsthand, and that now these students have come to know me as Uncle Chief. You know, they've come to know me as a person who is willing to help them. And I think that has been great for us in our community.
Those are all wonderful strategies, Chief. How did you partner with and work with local law enforcement agencies in the city of Tallahassee to assist you in your strategies with your student?
So what we actually did was I contacted the chief of police at Tallahassee and the sheriff at that time to ask them, could they provide assistance on the route that the students would take. I had reached out to them prior, so I had at least a conversation with them prior to this, and they were willing to help us. So it worked out well for us. They provided an escort for our students to walk safely from our campus to the Capitol. They staged areas where the students can protest. They laid down some ground rules through me for the students, because at one point students were actually sitting in the middle of the street, taking streets. So we made sure that the ground rules were laid, what the students could do, could not do. And before, if a student got out of hand, before the county or city would do something in terms of arresting them, they would immediately contact me. So I would have that voice to be able to communicate with our students, because I had somewhat of that trust because I gave them my phone number, so that they felt better in speaking with me.
Okay, so taking that beyond just the protest realm, for those parents that are now contemplating having their freshmen or their recent high school graduates now come onto the campus of a historically Black college or university during all of this unrest, as well as with what's going on with COVID-19, what advice would you have for parents in regards to the safe spaces or how safety is managed on our campuses?
So I would say to the parents of these wonderful students that's about to migrate to these wonderful HBCUs, to make sure you do some due diligence. You have an opportunity to look at the security report for each school. It should be posted online. If it's a school in your area, you can go to that police department and see the hard copy. But I urge you to look at those, because those become very important. Every university has to report their clery crimes. You get to see these. Do a little bit of digging to find out what's taking place in the school. I would even urge you to contact the police department of whatever campus you're looking at for your child to attend, and ask very specific questions. What would you consider, the question I would ask as a parent, what would you consider to be the crime that has taken place most on your campus? What are you doing about educating our students about sexual assault, about scams, about safety? What is the police department doing? I would even go as far as talking to the city or the county, because there are so many students who live off campus. Find the crime reports for the city and the counties before you place your child in an area that might not be desirable for you. But I will ask you to do a little bit of research. And when you visit the campus, I urge you to visit the police department. Look around, walk around, look at the areas around, find out what's taking place, and ask as many questions as you possibly can. Because we all know from an academic aspect, you know what that university is going to do for your student. But your biggest question is, how safe is my child from one building to the next? And those are things that I would beg parents to do prior to them sending their child to any HBCU or PWI if that's the case.
Okay, and so what are some of the things that students can do to help the police departments keep them safe?
Listen. So a lot of times our students, they don't want to listen. And a lot of times they don't want to read. That becomes the problem. But what I would tell students is arm yourself with knowledge. Walk up to the police department on your campus. Introduce yourself. Ask the police, what can we do as students to get to know you better? And what can you as police do to get to know us better? Invite them to a town hall. Have some specific questions that you want the police to address. Things that's related to your campus experience, things that's related to people of your age. Ask these questions. Build a partnership with the police. It doesn't hurt to do that. And when you see the police, walk up to them, ask them questions, talk to them about different things, because believe it or not, a lot of the police that works for either the university or the city are alums of the same school that you're attending right now. So they can give you things and insights that would be helpful for you as you matriculate through the university.
Well, now more than ever before, we have a cohort of students, and my daughter who's 16, she is very fearful of the police. As a matter of fact, I got a police ticket, and she was shaking like a leaf because it was a white officer, and in her mind he was going to kill us because he pulled us over. And so that fear and anxiety is a really big piece of what is happening amongst our youth right now when it comes to interaction with the police. So what would you say to those students who have that level of fear and anxiety?
Well, what I would say to your 16-year-old daughter, fear not. Her mom is super strong and very intelligent, so I would tell her that. But what I would tell students is don't let the actions of a small percentage of police destroy your thoughts for an entire population, because all police aren't bad. And if you fear the entire group, you make it very difficult for yourself. But I would say again, arm yourself with education. Know what you can do, know what you can't do, know what your rights are. And when you have a right to record whatever conversation you're having. You're out in public. See the name of the officer, get their badge number, record the time. If you are in fear, if it's dark and it's an undercover car or an unmarked car, I would say, and you feel, I don't know if this is really the police, I would urge you to pick up the phone, dial 911 while you're driving. Say, hey, my name is such and such, such. I'm in this area. There's a car behind me that doesn't look like a police car. I'm just a little afraid. Can you tell me if that is a police car? You're being proactive in the approach. When you are stopped by the police, what I say to people is make sure that the police can see your hands. Put them either outside the window, on the steering wheel, somewhere where they can see them. And I know it's kind of crazy, but I would say to you, don't be confrontational with the police, because you're not going to win that battle at the onset. If they ask you something, do what they're asking. If you feel is improper or something that you are recording this, you have their badge, and then if you make a complaint, it's one thing to make it, but it's also different to follow up on that complaint, because you don't want that same treatment to take place with someone else.
Okay, so I think that's awesome. Very good strategies. I think students, their phones are an extension of their hands, so they always have them with them. And so recording the interaction, and again, not being confrontational in the moment, but recording the evidence so that you can file a complete report, and then making sure you follow up that report and take it up the ladder if you need to, in order to ensure that whatever that individual had done has been addressed by his superior officers. I think those are all very good strategies that students on any campus could and should use as they are away from them on their own for the first time, and they no longer have a parent in the car or with them to help guide them through that process. These are some very good strategies that they could use as they start to get their own independence and function not from a space of fear, but like as you indicate, a space of knowledge of what their rights are and how to safely execute those rights. Yes. So thank you very much for having a dialogue with me today, Chief, and taking some time on this Juneteenth to try to give some information that'll be helpful to our HBCU communities, as well as to our young Black people that will be attending colleges in a few months, whether they be a HBCU or a predominantly white institution. So thank you very much for taking time out your very busy day, and I look forward to chatting again with you soon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay.